Last week, we will visit the Legislative Yuan, and here we are today at the Legislative Yuan in Taipei. Let's start with the history of the Legislative Yuan. The Legislative Yuan was actually founded in Nanjing, in China, but then in 1949-1950 moved to Taiwan and was first located in another location in Taipei. But at this location where we are here today, Zhongshan South Road in Taipei City, this location here is since 1960. So this is now the current location. So what kind of people are here in this building? It's the legislators. The Legislative Yuan is the highest legislative power in Taiwan. The members, the legislators, are elected directly by the people and they exercise their powers on behalf of the people. The latest elections were in 2020 and the next elections will be in 4 years, in 2024. Currently, we have 4 parties. The majority party in the Legislative Yuan now is the PPP, and the opposition party is the KMT. Plus, we have 2 younger and smaller parties, namely the Taiwan's People's Party, TPP, and the New Power Party, the NPP. So most of the legislators, they sit according to the parties. However, we do have some independent legislators, and we will also have an interview with an independent legislator today. The members serve for 4 years and the term can be renewed, so the legislators can be re-elected. And the Legislative Yuan has a president and a vice president that are elected by and from among its members, and the president is also called the Speaker of the Legislative Yuan. So here is the test question. How can you become a legislator? And how long does a legislator serve? According to Article 68 of the Constitution, there are 2 sessions each year. The first session starts from February and ends in May, and the second session starts in September and lasts until the end of December. So right now we are having summer vacation. The big room here, the meeting room here is closed because it's being renovated. But this is the place where normally the 113 legislators meet, and then this is called the UN settings. And the meetings take place on Tuesdays and Fridays, and are generally open to the public. Yeah, so the public can go up and watch how the meetings take place. We know that the 113 legislators, they also sit in certain specialized committees, and the committee meetings then take place here in that building on the left-hand side. So according to the Constitution, Article 67, there are various committees that may invite government officials and private persons to be present at the meetings to answer the questions. And here you can see where the committee meetings take place in this building. In each committee, we have about 13 to 15 members that deliberate the bills and public petitions. And the committees are specialized. So we have 8 standing committees for internal administration, foreign and national defense, economics, finance, education and culture, transportation, social welfare, and judiciary. And in addition to the 8 standing committees, there are 4 ad hoc committees. Ad hoc means the committees are convened when necessary. For example, when there are questions regarding procedure, discipline, expenditure, and also constitutional amendments. So the Legislative Yuan has the power to decide by resolution. So they take resolutions and then the bills become the law. So what is the difference between a bill and a law? A bill is a legislative draft. It is only a proposal, and when it is already passed, then it becomes a law. And according to the Constitution, Article 170, a law is defined as any legislative bill duly passed by the Legislative Yuan and promulgated by the President. So let's talk about the legislative procedure in more detail. So it first starts with a proposed bill. And who can propose a bill? Well, it's not only the legislators, but actually all the 5 yuans in Taiwan can come up with a bill, and often it is the executive yuan that will propose a bill. The bill then goes to the procedure committee, who will set the agenda, and then there will be the first reading. So during the first reading, the title of the bill will be read, and then often it will be referred to a committee, so we can discuss in a smaller circle, yeah, with some experts, the details of the bill. Or it can directly go to the second reading. So now the second reading is very important, because here each article will be read in detail and discussed. And after the second reading, often there will be some major revisions, or maybe the bill will even be revoked, or other important decisions will be taken. And finally, we have the third reading. The third reading only serves to do some rephrasing, but there are no more substantive revisions that can take place. So in principle, the statutory and budgetary bills, they have to go through the 3 readings. Other bills only require 2 readings. But the general principle is we have 3 readings to pass a law. And when the bill is passed by the Legislative Yuan, it will be forwarded to the President of Taiwan, and the President then shall promulgate the law within 10 days. However, here the Executive Yuan has the possibility to return the bill to the legislative yuan when it deems the bill difficult to execute. So we know the executive yuan, they have to execute the laws, they have to implement. And when they consider this to be difficult or there might be some problem, then with the approval of the president of Taiwan, the executive yuan can return the bill to the legislative yuan for reconsideration. And then it depends on the legislative yuan. If more than one half of all the legislators uphold the original bill, then it becomes a law and the executive yuan has to accept this result. However, if there are less than one half of the legislative yuan members, if less than one half uphold the original bill, or the legislative yuan fails to resolve this dispute within 15 days, then the original bill becomes invalid. So this reminds us a little bit of the veto, right? So we know this, for example, from the United States. In the United States, the president has the right to veto a bill or a law, yeah? In Taiwan, the president does not directly have the right to veto, but it's the executive yuan who, with the approval of the president, can ask the legislative to reconsider the bill. So the test question now for you: what is the difference between a bill and a law? So what I just said, what I just explained, this was the normal legislative procedure. But sometimes when there are some fundamental changes, for example, we want to amend not just a normal law, but the constitution, which is the highest law in Taiwan. Or we want to change the territorial boundaries of Taiwan. These are some fundamental changes that require a little bit more, that have a higher threshold requirement. In particular, it has to be proposed, first of all, by one-fourth of all the legislative yuan members. And then we need three-fourths of all the legislators to be present and to take a supermajority vote. So three-fourths of the legislators have to approve this kind of change. Plus, 6 months after announcing the proposed amendment, there must be a national referendum. So national referendum means the proposed amendment will be subject to a vote by all the citizens of Taiwan, and we need more than one half of the total number of voters then to approve this kind of fundamental change. And just to give you an example, this March 2022, the legislators here approved to lower the voting age according to the constitution from 20 years to 18 years. So this was approved by the legislators unanimously. But because this is a change of the constitution, so therefore, in order to take effect, it must still be subject to a national referendum. So this will take place in November this year, November 2022. The people, the citizens of Taiwan will have the chance to vote whether or not they want to accept this kind of constitutional amendment. Apart from the legislative power, the legislative yuan also has the power to check the executive yuan. How? One way is by reviewing the budgetary bills. So budget, this means the money. How does the executive yuan want to spend its money? So for this, the executive yuan will propose the budget, and this budgetary bill then must be approved by the legislators. Do you think this is important? Well, of course, yes. So whenever whoever has got power over the money, this is a big power. Yeah. So this is a way how the legislative exercise power over the executive. Yeah, by deciding the budget, by approving the budget. Another way to check the executive yuan is by way of investigation rights. So the legislative yuan can request documents, they can request the testimonies of citizens or other government personnel. And very important also is the right to interpellation, and there are two methods. One is oral interpretation, where the legislators can invite or request the executive yuan president and also the ministers to come to the legislative yuan and to answer the questions. So this is what we often see in TV, right? When the premier, for example, from the executive yuan, he comes to the legislative, and then there is a Q&A. Yeah, so the executive then has to respond to the questions of the legislators. Or this kind of interpellation can also be in a written way, by means of written interpellation, and then also here the executive yuan must reply in writing unless there are certain exceptions. And finally, the legislative yuan also has the right to take a no confidence vote against the executive yuan president. Yeah? So should the legislators be very dissatisfied with the premier, the president of the executive yuan, then here the legislators can pass a no confidence vote against the executive yuan president. So much to the powers of the legislative yuan to check the executive. On the other hand, what's more, the legislative yuan can also check the president. How? Well, each year the president gives a report on the state of the nation, and this will be heard here by the legislators. And then we also know that the president nominates the top government officials, and these nominations have to be confirmed by the legislative yuan members here. For example, if the president wants to appoint a grand justice, yeah, or members of the examination and control yuan, all these nominations have to be approved by the legislative here. Or the legislative also has the right to ratify an emergency decree. Yeah, as last time I told you, the president can issue emergency decrees, but these emergency decrees then have to be sent to the legislative for ratification. And finally, the legislative also can propose to recall the president. So the citizens then can go and vote whether or not they want to recall the president. But this kind of recall also has to be proposed by the legislative yuan. And impeachment is also a right of the legislative. So what is the difference between recall and impeachment? To impeach means it's the legislative who brings a formal charge of misconduct, in this case, for example, against the president of Taiwan, and then there will be a vote, and if 2/3 of all the legislators concur, then this kind of impeachment will be submitted to the grand justices, and if the grand justices of the constitutional yuan sustain this kind of impeachment, then the impeached shall resign. So this is a way how the legislative also can check the president. So, test question for you. What functions and powers does the legislative yuan have? Give at least 3 examples. And another test question. Now mark the odd word. So odd means strange. So which word does not fit to this group? So if we have A, parliament, B, the Congress, C, the legislative yuan, and D, the control yuan. So I give you the 4 words, and 3 of them all have similar meanings except for 1 word. So which word does not fit in? Okay, and finally, I want to mention the Open Parliament Action Plan, which was proposed in 2020. And the goal of this action plan is to make the parliament, or the legislative yuan in this case, more transparent, more open, to invite public participation, the literacy, to promote the education, and also the digitization, so to promote the digital media, to make everything more transparent and open for everyone to watch. So for a few years we already have these online broadcasts. Yeah, we can watch the sittings on TV, yeah, or also on the internet. But in addition, there are now many more initiatives to make the legislative yuan even more transparent. And in our interview with a legislator who initiated this proposal, we'll tell you more about this action plan. Conclusion: the legislative is a branch of the government that is closest to the people. The legislators come from all walks of life, are directly elected by the people, and have the primary task to represent the people's interests. As such, the legislative is a democratic symbol where conflicts should ideally be carried out in a peaceful manner by the power of arguments and persuasion. And even though we know this is not always the case, since we sometimes can see how a fight breaks out in the yuan sitting, but this is my wish, yeah, for the parliament, and maybe a suggestion also for the president of the legislative yuan, maybe to promote a culture, yeah, of dialogue, of mutual respect, and maybe promoting the training of the legislators to improve their rhetoric and the persuasion skills. This building used to be a Japanese school for girls only, and it has not changed a lot, the building, so it's really a historic building, and right now during this summer vacation it is being renovated. So there are some places we cannot go in, but we are still lucky we get to see the place. And as you can see, the classrooms used to be here. It really looks like a school, the classrooms, and now it's the secretariat, the administrative building. This is really a historic building. Whenever we want to make some changes to the building, we have to apply to the Ministry of Culture for permission. You can see the sign, Yichang. This is the place where the yuan sittings take place every week, Tuesday and Friday. When we have the meetings Tuesday and Friday mornings, then this first floor here is reserved for the legislators, but normally it's also open to the public, so the public will then go upstairs and can watch the meetings. This is the logo of the Legislative Yuan. The famous restaurant or cafeteria for the employees working here at the Legislative Yuan, but it's also open to the public. Yeah, and even if you want to eat here, you would have to make a reservation. But otherwise, it is open. So this is a very famous restaurant. Let's take a look. Other facilities. For example, here you see the bank and the post office, yeah, and then we also have some stores. We'll take a look at that later. And we are now downstairs. Downstairs we have the reading room of the Parliamentary Library, but this is only a small part of the library. Yeah, so there are many other bigger rooms where we can find the books. The library is for the legislators, not for the public. But you see they really have many books here, and the magazines you can see here, even the German journals and magazines, everything is here. Here you can see the Legislative Yuan Gazette where the laws, yeah, are published. So here we are at the office of Freddie Lim. We are going to have an interview with him, and he just came back from a long travel, from a long trip. Hi, ni hao. So we are so lucky to have the chance now to talk to a real legislator, and he's not only real, he's also young, and he speaks English. Yeah,
not that young anymore.
and he just came back, yeah, from a long trip, yeah, through many countries. So we are still keeping social distancing, yeah, still keeping some quarantine, yeah. But you see the past of Freddie. Yeah, Freddie has a very interesting background. He used to be a singer.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see many fans, and we also have some fans here. Yeah, here accompanying us today. So we see that the legislators come from all walks of life, right? You don't need to study law, right? Even though you are now passing the law, but you don't even need a legal background. You are just like the normal people. You are elected by the people, and you are here for the people, right? To represent the people's interests. And how can you manage to represent the people? I'm sure it's not easy, right? Because the people have many different interests, and there are the clashes of the different opinions and the conflicts of opinions. And this is the place in the Legislative Yuan where we try to find a common solution to pass a law that reflects the people's opinion and the people's will. So it's a symbol of democracy. And this is now really the issue. How can we manage to find a common consensus?
It's not that easy. But first of all, of course, because Parliament is represented people, so it's not really necessary all the representatives or the legislators have to come from law school or from the political fields. It's more important to represent people from all over different parts of societies. So it's very important to have our kinds of people that from artistic field, from music industry, or from the more connected to the young people. It's very important. So with my age, I'm more than 40s now, but in the political arena, I'm still being called young generation. So it's really, there is a gap between the real life, because in the real life, a 40-year-age, middle-aged person like me, we call middle age. But in the political arena, we still being called young generation. That there is a gap. So I think it's still very important, like you just said, that the Parliament represents the people. So we should reflect how society works. It's very important. So we should let the gap between the real life and the politics closer. We try to bring both closer. So although I'm not from the law school, I didn't study politics, but I think we know we have the passion, we are willing to be closer with the people, or we are from the people, so we know what people need. So it's not like we will be trained in the parliaments, but we know what the people want. We spend a lot of time during our campaign to collect all different ideas from our district and try to push forward the progressive issues, our values, democracy, human rights, and LGBTQ rights, and try to try to push forward, try to move forward to our values. And but how to implement all these values into the lawmaking process, it depends on our excellent staff assistants here. So after we are elected, the Legislative Yuan has provided some kind of training lessons for the assistants and for the legislators as well. But mainly, I think we work as a team. So all the assistants have to go to the lessons, and also have to learn from different NGOs, from different civil society groups, to learn how to implement our values into the lawmaking process.
Right.
And also, it's very important to negotiate with your colleagues, because it's a democracy. Even in the parliament, it's a democracy. There are 113 members in the parliament, in the Legislative Yuan. So which means your idea, if you want your idea being passed, we need to have more than 57 votes in the parliament, which then make your idea a majority. Yeah. So it's very important to gain those support from more than 57 people. So it's not just like, oh, I'm a legislator, I want to push forward something, and there will be a bunch of people support you. No, there will be nobody, because each member of the parliament care about their district mainly, and think more about their own issues, their own values. But it's more, so how you convince the others to work with you is very important.
Yeah. And I hope that the legislators can improve in this regard, right? To have this power of persuasion in the negotiation skills, because sometimes we see on TV, right, how the fight is breaking out, and it's quite embarrassing. Yeah. So this is maybe a suggestion we can give to the Legislative Yuan, maybe your president, right? To offer this kind of training, right? Rhetoric, negotiation skills to the legislators, right? Right. Yes. Great. And then Yes, so also what makes Freddie so special, he was the one who proposed the Open Parliament Action Plan a few years ago. You were the one who came up with this idea, and it has been accepted, and this is now being implemented. So Freddie, can you tell us what inspired you to come up with this excellent idea of an open Congress, and how is it going with the implementation?
During the last few years, we can see that how our parliament has been more and more transparent. Now you can see all the real-time live broadcasting on TV or even on the apps online, and also you can see how the decision-making process, which during each bills, acts, and or the different kinds of votes, budgeting, each member of the parliament, how they make decisions is more transparent now. So I think it's very important because the democracy it doesn't work like every 4 years, once every 4 years, not like that. Democracy is not just about voting, it's more about what you can do during this term, during these 4 years. In these 4 years, you can still monitor, you can still review how your member of the parliament in your district are doing. Based on all different kinds of bills. It's very important to keep watching your politicians elected by you keep working aligned with your values. It's very important. So to make the parliament transparent and accountable by the citizens are very important. And it's not just Taiwan is doing this open parliament project, but also there are more than 70 countries in the world now formed an international organization called Open Government Partnership. So it's a trend that to make our democracy more resilient, because with more engagement between the citizens and the politicians, we can build trust. We can build a more concrete democracy. Then when we are facing the neo-authoritarianism from outside, from overseas, it's how we can stop their infiltration. It's very important to make our democracy stronger and resilient, and to build the trust between our society. So when we have democracy more transparent, which means our democracy supported and trusted by the society more. So I think it's very important.
This is the key word, trust, right? The citizens must have trust in the legislators who represent them, and this is really what makes a good legislator. A good legislator is not only cares about the people when it's time to vote, right? But really always, in between the voting times also.
Right.
Yes, great. So this is a really wonderful plan, and it's a part of an international trend, as you say, where Taiwan, our Congress, our legislative yuan here is participating.
In this field, actually, Taiwan is quite ahead of all the democracies, because I think Taiwan, during all these decades of efforts, Taiwan tried to make our democracies stronger and stronger and be more advanced. So compared to some old democracies in Europe, sometimes I was very surprised that we are, after all these years, like we have the real-time broadcast. But in some European countries, they don't even have.
Yes.
So we are quite ahead.
And I read the Premier Su, right? He gave a report a few months ago here in the Legislative Yuan, and he mentioned, according to the international statistics, Taiwan's democracy is ranked #1 in Asia and number 8 globally.
Yes. So sometimes we thought that we are very behind, but after decades of efforts, we are quite ahead right now.
Thanks to legislators like Freddie. Okay, and this brings us to our last question. So Freddie has been traveling a lot to Europe and also to the United States, and you have been talking to many legislators and meeting, right, and visiting the U.S. Congress in the United States and the parliaments in Europe. Can you compare it a little bit? Is what makes the Taiwanese legislative yuan special or different or unique from others?
I think, of course, I think Parliament is Parliament. So if we talk, compare to Parliament to another, systematically there might be something different, but basically it's quite the same. But due to the overall international political environment, Taiwan is more restricted by the international society. So it's a bit. So the members of the parliaments have to take care of some diplomatic responsibilities. So sometimes we've been invited to make a speech in very important international meetings, conferences for represent our country. In one hand, of course, every time I feel very honored to make a speech there for our people in Taiwan. But in the other hand, it also shows that because that our officials in the administrative levels might be restricted by the international arenas. Just like, for example, like our president cannot show personally in the Copenhagen Democracy Summit. All the other leaders, they show up personally, but our president can only make a speech online. So with all these kind of restrictions, the members of our parliaments take more burden on make Taiwanese voices out. And also the international communities also know that with these kind of restrictions, they will try to invite more key members of the parliaments in Taiwan to participate in the international communities, in the international conferences. So it's very important as a member. It's also my honor to make our voices out.
Right, yeah. So you see our legislators here have a special task also to represent our nation internationally. And the next elections are coming up in 2024. And I hope you will make good use of your right to vote and vote those that really represent your interests, not necessarily the business, right, or the companies, but really the citizens' interests. Okay, make good use of your right. The right is also a duty.
Thank you.
And here are all the journalists. All the journalists are waiting here to interview the legislators. So often you can see this also on TV, right, where the legislators have the interviews. So here you see the live streaming center. This is the place where the journalists can watch the committee meetings. Because often we have the different committee meetings taking place at the same time, and then it wouldn't be possible for the journalists to attend, to run from one place to the other committee meeting. So they just come to this room and then they can watch all the different committee meetings. Yeah, you see the different specialized committee meetings. Yeah, education and culture, social welfare, economy, transportation, finance, judiciary, foreign affairs, and internal affairs. So we see the legislative yuan here is quite modern. All the facilities of the legislative yuan for the employees, and also for the legislators. You see they sell the fruits, they sell the clothes. There is even a beauty salon to get a haircut. And over there we have the shops where you can buy the snacks. So it's really a world of its own. The flower shop, this is the flower shop. And here you can have the laundry service. professional machines, yeah, to repair, to mend the clothes. All this is very special. The press conference room of the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, and as you can see, it's really green inside here. The leading majority party right now in Taiwan. This is the office where they prepare the bills. So the bills are only the legislative proposals, and when they are passed, then they become the laws. But here, this is the place where the bills are prepared. We can take a look. Look inside.
看一下这个，可以进去看一下这个。
And this is the other big party right now in the Legislative Yuan, the Kuomintang, the KMT office is here. And also
也
take
是
a
一
look.
样。
And very interesting, it really looks blue inside here. This is the press conference room of the KMT. And you can see it really looks blue inside here. So the KMT is the blue color and the DPP is the green color. And the offices, the press rooms really reflect the color. This is very, very important now. The petition reception room. Let's go in. So this is the place when the people have a special problem. They can file a petition. So here you have to make an appointment first, and then you can submit your petition to the Legislative Yuan, and the Legislative Yuan will find a legislator for you who might mediate on your behalf with the government. So I think this is very important for the people to know that there is this kind of service for the people, the petition room.